I used to think my life was boring in the best possible way, the kind of boring people secretly envy. Same alarm every weekday at 6:10 a.m., same cracked travel mug filled with burnt coffee, same drive down I-95 with the radio stuck on a local talk station because I never bothered to change it. I lived with my partner Claire in a two-bedroom apartment just outside Baltimore, the kind of place with thin walls and a parking lot that always smelled faintly like hot asphalt. We'd been together a little over 5 years. Not married, but everyone assumed we were headed there eventually, including me. I worked as a project coordinator for a mid-sized logistics company downtown. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid well enough and came with health insurance, which felt like winning the lottery in your early 30s. My boss, Evan, was the kind of guy who liked to remind everyone he started in the mailroom, even though the company had only existed for 12 years. He wore expensive watches with cheap suits and called people buddy when he wanted something from them. We didn't socialize outside the office. He barely knew anything about my life, or so I thought. Claire worked freelance graphic design from home. She had a whole setup by the living room window, an oversized monitor, plants she forgot to water, noise-canceling headphones that made her unreachable for hours. People loved her. She had that easy laugh that made strangers feel like they'd known her forever. I trusted her completely. Not in a dramatic way, just it never crossed my mind to doubt her. The first crack showed up in the smallest, stupidest way, a calendar notification. It was a Thursday afternoon, slow enough that I was scrolling through my phone pretending to look busy. I opened our shared Google Calendar to double-check a dinner we had planned with friends that weekend. That's when I noticed an entry I didn't recognize. Just a gray block, no title, from 7:30 to 9 p.m. the night before. No location, no notes, nothing. I stared at it longer than I should have. We didn't usually block off time like that. If Claire had a client call, she'd label it. If it was personal, she'd mention it to me. I told myself it was probably nothing, a misclick, a leftover draft. Still, when I got home that night, I asked casually, "What'd you get up to last night?" I said, kicking off my shoes. She didn't look up from her laptop. "Just work stuff. Why?" "No reason," I said. "Just saw something on the calendar I didn't recognize." She paused, just for half a second. Then she smiled and shrugged. "Oh, yeah, that was a client call that ran late. I forgot to label it." That should have been the end of it, and for a while it was. Over the next few weeks, though, little things stacked up. Claire started dressing nicer on random weekdays. Not just jeans and a hoodie, but fitted jackets, boots, makeup done even when she said she had no meetings. She took her phone with her everywhere, even to the bathroom, something she'd never done before. If I walked into the room while she was texting, she'd angle the screen away without realizing she was doing it. At work, Evan started paying more attention to me. He asked me to stay late more often, pulled me into meetings that could have been emails, complimented my work in a way that felt forced, like he was overcorrecting for something. Once, after everyone else had left, he clapped me on the shoulder and said, "You're doing great things here, don't forget that." I laughed it off, but it sat weird in my stomach. The night everything shifted started like any other. I was packing up to leave when Evan leaned against my cubicle wall and asked if I had a minute. "Actually," he said, checking his watch, "could you come by my office after hours? There's something I need to go over with you, privately." I remember thinking it was odd, but not alarming. I texted Claire to let her know I'd be late. She replied with a thumbs up and nothing else. By the time I walked into Evan's office, the building was nearly empty. The cleaning crew's carts rattled faintly somewhere down the hall. His lights were dimmer than usual. He gestured for me to sit, then closed the door behind me. He didn't start right away. He rubbed his hands together, took a breath, and avoided my eyes. "This is uncomfortable," he said, "but it's better you hear it from me than someone else." My heart picked up speed. I ran through a dozen possibilities in my head. Layoffs, a complaint, a mistake I didn't know I'd made. "I need to ask you something personal," he continued, "and I need you to answer honestly." I nodded, my mouth suddenly dry. "How long have you and Claire been together?" The room felt like it tilted. 5 years, I said slowly. "Why?" He exhaled through his nose and leaned back in his chair. "Okay, then I'm just going to say it. I believe your partner is involved in an inappropriate relationship, one that intersects with this company." I stared at him, waiting for the punchline that never came. "What are you talking about?" I said. He slid a manila folder across the desk. My name was written on the tab in black ink. "I was made aware of this earlier this week," he said, "and before HR gets involved, I wanted to give you a chance to understand what's happening." My hands were shaking as I opened the folder. Inside were a few printed emails, partially redacted, a couple of calendar screenshots, and a photo. It took me a second to process what I was looking at. A woman sitting across from someone at a bar. The angle was bad, grainy, like it was taken from across the room. But I knew that posture, that hair, that laugh frozen mid-moment. It was Claire, and the man sitting across from her wasn't me. "Who is that?" I asked, even though my chest already felt like it was collapsing. Evan didn't answer right away. He looked genuinely uncomfortable now, like he wished he could rewind the last 5 minutes. "That," he said quietly,
is one of our senior clients. I felt a heat rush to my face. So what? She's a designer. She meets clients. He nodded. That's what we thought too, until it became clear the relationship went beyond professional. My ears rang. The words felt distant, unreal. And before you ask, he added, yes, I confirmed her identity. There's no mistake. I sat there in silence, the hum of the fluorescent lights filling the space between us. Every small thing I'd brushed off over the past month came rushing back, rearranging itself into something darker, heavier. I'm not here to accuse you of anything, Evan said, but this could become an issue, and I needed you to be aware. Aware, like this was a policy update, like my life hadn't just split open. I left the office in a daze. The elevator ride down felt endless. Outside, the city moved on like nothing had happened. Cars honked. People laughed on the sidewalk. I sat in my car for a long time before starting the engine. When I finally pulled into our parking lot, Claire's car was already there. Lights on in the apartment. Warm. Normal. I stood outside the door, my key in my hand, knowing that once I stepped inside, nothing would be simple ever again. I didn't confront her that night. I don't know why. Maybe it was shock. Maybe cowardice. Or maybe some part of me needed to believe there was still an explanation that didn't end with my life blowing up. I unlocked the door and walked into the apartment like everything was normal.
Claire was on the couch, legs tucked under her, laptop balanced on her knees. She looked up and smiled like she always did. "Hey," she said. "Long day?" "Yeah," I said, and my voice sounded strange to my own ears. Too flat, too controlled. She closed the laptop and set it aside. "Wanta order Thai? I'm exhausted." I nodded, went to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water I didn't drink. My hands were shaking again. I kept seeing that photo. The angle of her body leaning forward, the intimacy in a moment I wasn't part of. I told myself I needed proof, something undeniable, because right then, it still felt like an accusation floating in the air, not a reality I could grab onto. That night, lying next to her in bed, I barely slept. Claire fell asleep fast, her breathing evening out within minutes. I lay there staring at the ceiling, replaying Evan's words over and over. Inappropriate relationship. Senior client. Confirmed her identity. I tried to imagine scenarios where this ended with a misunderstanding. Maybe the client had crossed a line and she didn't shut it down fast enough. Maybe the photo was misleading. Maybe Evan was wrong. But my gut didn't believe any of that. Over the next few days, I became someone I didn't recognize. I paid attention to everything. The way Claire checked her phone first thing in the morning, smiling at something she didn't share. The way she started stepping outside to take calls. The way she'd suddenly have plans in the evening she hadn't mentioned before. "Just meeting a friend," she'd say, or "client dinner, I told you about it." Sometimes she had, sometimes she hadn't. I stopped correcting her. At work, the tension was unbearable. Evan avoided me now. HR sent out a vague email about compliance and professional boundaries that made my stomach drop. Every time my phone buzzed, I wondered if it was Claire, or if it was going to be someone from work asking me to come in and talk. The worst part was how normal everything looked from the outside. We still ate dinner together, still joked about stupid reality shows, still planned a weekend trip we'd talked about for months. I nodded along, smiled when I was supposed to, and felt like I was watching someone else live my life. 3 nights later, Claire told me she had a late meeting downtown. She dressed carefully, more carefully than usual. Black jeans, boots, a jacket I loved on her. She kissed me on the cheek before she left. "Don't wait up," she said. As soon as the door closed, something in me snapped into focus. I grabbed my keys without thinking and went downstairs. I told myself I just needed clarity, that I wouldn't do anything stupid, that I'd turn around if it felt wrong. I followed her car. She didn't go downtown. She drove past it, past the exits I took every day. She pulled into a quieter part of the city, one of those neighborhoods that had been half gentrified, with dim streetlights and bars that tried to look low-key but charged $15 for a cocktail. She parked and walked into a place with no sign, just a single red light over the door. I parked a block away, my heart hammering so hard I thought I might pass out. I sat there for a full 5 minutes before forcing myself out of the car. Inside, the bar was dark and loud, all exposed brick and murmured conversations. It took my eyes a second to adjust. Then I saw her. She was sitting in a corner booth, facing the door.
Across from her was a man I recognized instantly from the company website. I'd seen his headshot in presentations, his name in emails. He was older than me, early 40s maybe, confident in the way men get when they're used to being listened to. They were close, not touching, but leaning in, smiling, comfortable. I stood there like an idiot, frozen, watching as he reached across the table and brushed his fingers against her wrist. She didn't pull away. She laughed, something soft and private, something I hadn't heard in weeks. That was the moment it stopped being theoretical. I don't remember leaving the bar. I don't remember driving home. I remember sitting on the edge of our bed afterward, staring at the wall while the room spun slowly around me. Every memory I had with Claire started rearranging itself in my head, moments I thought were solid suddenly full of cracks. When she came home later that night, I pretended to be asleep. She slid into bed quietly, careful not to wake me. Her hand brushed my arm, just for a second. I felt sick. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in years. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, rereading the emails Evan had shown me in my head, wishing I'd paid more attention to the details. By noon, I'd convinced myself I needed to hear it from her. No more tessing, no more watching from the shadows. When she got back from the grocery store that afternoon, I was waiting in the living room. "We need to talk," I said. She froze, keys still in her hand. "Okay," she said cautiously. "What's going on?" I took a breath. "I know about him." Her face went blank. Not confused, not surprised, just empty. "I followed you last night," I continued, my voice shaking now. "I saw you together." For a moment she didn't say anything. Then she put the groceries down slowly and sat on the couch, like her legs had given out. "I didn't plan for this," she said quietly. That sentence hit harder than any denial could have. "How long?" I asked. She looked at the floor. "A few months." My chest tightened. "You've been lying to me for months." "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said quickly. "It just happened." I laughed, a sharp sound that didn't feel like it came from me. "That's not an answer." She finally looked up at me, eyes glossy. "I didn't think it would go this far. He started as a client. Then he became someone I talked to, someone who listened. I felt something crack inside me. I listened." "I know," she said. "This isn't about you not being enough." I stood up, pacing now, anger finally breaking through the numbness. "Do you have any idea what this is doing to my job, to my life?" Her eyes widened. "What do you mean?" "My boss called me in after hours," I said. "HR knows. This isn't just some secret fling, Claire. It's already spilling into my work." Her face strained of color. "He said he'd handle it," she whispered. That was when I realized something else, something even worse. "You talked about me," I said. "With him." She didn't answer. The silence told me everything. After that silence, the room felt contaminated, like the air itself had been lying to me too. I sat back down, not because I wanted to, but because my legs suddenly didn't feel reliable anymore. Claire was crying now, quietly, wiping her face with the sleeve of her jacket like she didn't deserve a tissue. I watched her and felt this strange split inside me. One part wanted to pull her close out of habit. The other part wanted to get up and walk out the door and never look back. "You told him things about me," I said again, slower this time. "Personal things." She nodded once, barely. Not in a bad way, just stuff." "What kind of stuff?" I asked. She hesitated, and that hesitation did more damage than any words could have. "About us. About how distant things felt sometimes. About you being stressed. About me feeling invisible." Invisible. The word echoed in my head like a bad joke.
I thought about all the nights I'd cooked dinner because she was swamped with work. All the times I'd stayed up late helping her troubleshoot client issues, even though I had to be up early. All the weekends I'd skipped plans with friends because she wanted a quiet night in. "You made me sound like some absent boyfriend," I said. "I didn't mean it like that," she said quickly. He paid attention in a different way." That sentence burned. Paid attention in a different way, as if attention was some limited resource I had mismanaged. "So what now?" I asked. "Is this over?" She looked up at me, eyes red, searching my face like she was afraid of the answer. "I don't know." That was worse than a yes. I stood up again, grabbed my jacket. "I need air." "Please don't leave like this," she said, standing too. "I can't be here right now," I said. "I don't trust myself not to say something I can't take back." She didn't stop me this time. I drove aimlessly for almost an hour, through neighborhoods I didn't recognize, past strip malls and closed gas stations, my thoughts looping in ugly circles.
I kept replaying moments from the past year, searching for signs. Every late night, every unexplained mood shift, every time she'd said she was just tired. It all lined up too neatly now, like a picture coming into focus when you finally step back. My phone buzzed a few times. I didn't look at it. I parked by a dark stretch of waterfront and sat there, forehead resting against the steering wheel, trying to breathe through the tightness in my chest. I wasn't crying. I felt past that. It was more like my emotions had gone underground, tunneling quietly, setting up something bigger. The next morning, I went to work. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted normalcy. Maybe I wanted answers. Or maybe I just wanted to see him again, the man who'd been sitting across from my partner in that booth, smiling like he hadn't helped dismantle my life. Evan called me into his office before I even logged in. He shut the door, same as before, but this time he didn't bother with small talk. "I'm sorry," he said. "I know you confronted her." I blinked. "How do you know that?" He sighed. "Because the client called me last night. He was concerned. Concerned. The nerve of it made my jaw clench. What exactly did he say?" I asked. "That things had become complicated," Evan replied carefully, "and that he wanted to make sure there wouldn't be any professional repercussions." I laughed, bitter. For him. Evan didn't disagree. "So what happens now?" I asked. "Am I the problem here?" "No," he said quickly. "You've done nothing wrong. But this situation puts the company in a difficult position." There it was. The corporate translation of emotional fallout. He's stepping back from active projects. Evan continued. "At least temporarily. HR is documenting everything." "And me?" I asked. "You're collateral," he said, wincing at his own honesty. "But we're trying to protect you." Protect. Another empty word. I went back to my desk and stared at my screen, unable to focus. Every email felt pointless. Every task trivial. Around noon, my phone lit up with Claire's name. I ignored it. Then a text came through. "I'm so sorry. I'll do whatever it takes. Please talk to me." I didn't respond. That evening, when I got home, the apartment looked different. Claire had been busy. She'd cleaned. Like deep cleaned. The kind of cleaning people do when they're desperate to regain control. The counters gleamed. The throw pillows were arranged just right. She sat on the couch, hands folded, like she was waiting for a verdict. "I ended it," she said as soon as I walked in. I didn't take off my jacket. "Ended what?" "With him," she said. "I told him we couldn't talk anymore, that it was a mistake." I studied her face, looking for something solid. "When?" "This morning," she said. "After you left." I nodded slowly. "And what did he say?" She hesitated. That he understood. That he didn't want to cause any more damage. Damage. Like it was some abstract concept. "You don't get to just end it and make this go away," I said. "You know that, right?" "I know," she said, tears spilling now. "I know I broke something." I finally sat down across from her, exhaustion washing over me. "Why him?" She wiped her face, took a breath. "Because he made me feel seen, at a time when I didn't feel great about myself. Because it started innocent. Because I didn't stop it when I should have." "Did you love him?" I asked. The question hung between us, heavy and fragile. "No," she said. After a moment, "I don't think so. I loved how it felt to be wanted." That distinction didn't comfort me the way she seemed to think it would. We talked for hours, or maybe we talked in circles. She apologized. I asked questions I already knew the answers to. We dissected our relationship like it was a body on a table, trying to figure out where the infection started. By the end, my head hurt, and my heart felt raw. "I don't know if I can get past this," I said finally. She nodded, like she'd been expecting that. "I'll give you space. Whatever you need." That night, I slept on the couch. The apartment felt unfamiliar, like I was crashing in someone else's life. Every sound made me tense. Every memory felt like it had sharp edges now. Over the next week, we existed in this strange limbo. Polite. Careful. She stayed late at coffee shops to give me space. I avoided coming home early. At work, things were quieter. The client's name stopped appearing in emails. People avoided my eyes in the hallway like they knew something, but didn't know how much. One evening, Evan stopped by my desk again. "There's something else you should know," he said. My stomach dropped. "What now?" "He's leaving the company.
Evan said, "Not officially because of this, but it's connected." I nodded slowly. The news didn't bring relief, just a dull sense of finality. When I told Claire that night, she cried again. Not because she missed him, I think, but because the consequences had finally solidified into something real. That was the moment I realized something important. No matter what she did next, no matter how sorry she was, the version of us I'd trusted without question was gone, replaced by something fragile, uncertain, and permanently altered. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, knowing a decision was coming, one that would either rebuild something broken, or finally admit that some things don't go back together the way they were. The decision didn't arrive all at once. It crept in quietly over the next few days, in the small moments when I wasn't distracted enough to avoid my own thoughts, like standing in the shower, letting the water run too hot, realizing I felt more tired than angry now, or sitting in my car after work, engine off, just staring at the dark windshield because going inside felt heavier than staying put. Claire tried. I'll give her that. She didn't push. She didn't beg. She answered every question I asked, even when it clearly hurt her. She gave me passwords without me requesting them. She stopped going out altogether unless it was unavoidable. She acted like someone waiting for a sentence to be handed down. And somehow, that made it worse. Because trust doesn't come back through compliance. It either exists or it doesn't. And mine felt like it had been scooped out and replaced with something hollow.
One night, about 2 weeks after everything blew up, I came home earlier than usual. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the fridge. Claire was sitting at the dining table with her laptop closed, hands wrapped around a mug she wasn't drinking from. "I was thinking," she said carefully, "maybe we should talk about counseling?" I set my bag down slowly. "Okay?" "Not because I think it fixes everything," she added, "just so we don't leave things unsaid." I nodded. That part I understood. There were still too many thoughts bouncing around in my head with nowhere to land. We booked a session with a therapist recommended by a friend of hers. Neutral office, soft lighting, boxes of tissues placed strategically like an expectation. Sitting next to Claire on that couch felt surreal, familiar and wrong at the same time. The therapist asked how long we'd been together. Asked what brought us in. Claire talked first, voice shaking but steady enough. She owned what she'd done without excuses. I listened, arms crossed, jaw tight. Then it was my turn. I talked about the betrayal, yes, but also about something I hadn't admitted out loud yet. How every memory I replayed now felt unreliable. How I didn't know which version of our relationship was real. The one I lived in, or the one she'd apparently been living alongside it. "I feel like I've been replaced in my own life," I said. "And even if she's here now, I don't know how to forget that she chose someone else when she was unhappy instead of choosing me." Claire cried quietly beside me. The therapist nodded, asked questions, reframed things in ways that sounded reasonable, but nothing clicked into place. There was no sudden clarity, just words filling time. After the session, we walked to our cars in silence. "So," Claire said finally, "what are you thinking?" I thought about lying, about saying I needed more time, about stretching this limbo out because endings are harder than suffering through the familiar. "I don't think I can do this," I said. She stopped walking. "I love you," she said. "I still love you." "I know." And I did. That was the cruelest part. Love hadn't disappeared. It just wasn't enough to cover the damage. "I don't want to become someone who's constantly checking, constantly wondering," I continued. "I don't want to punish you forever, and I don't want to live like I'm waiting for it to happen again." She nodded slowly, tears sliding down her face. "So that's it?" "I think it has to be," I said. We stood there for a long time, neither of us moving, like if we stayed still enough the moment might pass without demanding anything from us. But eventually she got into her car. I watched her drive away, and that was the first time it really hit me that this was happening. That 5 years didn't dissolve all at once. They ended in fragments. The breakup itself was strangely calm. We divided things with quiet efficiency. Furniture, dishes, the dog we'd talked about getting but never did. She stayed with a friend while she looked for a place. The apartment felt emptier immediately, like the walls knew. At work, the situation finally settled. The client was gone. HR closed the case. Evan stopped walking on eggshells around me. Life resumed its rhythm, but I felt permanently out of sync with it. Like everyone else had moved on to the next song, and I was still stuck on the last note. A month later, I ran into Claire by accident at a grocery store. We froze in the same aisle, both of us reaching for the same brand of pasta sauce out of habit. She smiled awkwardly. Hey. Hey, I said. She looked okay. Tired maybe, but lighter somehow, like someone who'd accepted the consequences of their choices and was learning to carry them. How have you been? She asked. Getting there, I said. And it was true. We made small talk. About work, about mutual friends, about nothing that mattered. When we said goodbye, it felt final in a way the breakup hadn't. Clean. Real. Driving home afterward, I realized something that surprised me. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even sad in the sharp way I'd been before. I just felt clear. What happened with my boss calling me in after hours wasn't just the moment I realized the affair involved my partner. It was the moment the story I thought I was living cracked open and showed me the truth underneath. Not just about her, but about me. About what I was willing to accept. About the line between loving someone and losing yourself trying to keep them. I still think about her sometimes. You don't erase 5 years like they never mattered, but I don't wish I'd stayed ignorant. I don't wish I hadn't found out, because knowing, even when it hurts, is better than building a future on something already broken. Some endings don't come with shouting or slam doors. Sometimes they arrive quietly. After hours. In an office with dim lights and a manila folder. And once they do, there's no unknowing them.